November 2nd, 1944. 3:47 p.m. somewhere over Czechoslovakia, Lieutenant Bruce Carr watches the oil pressure gauge drop to zero. Black smoke pours from the cowling of his P-51 Mustang. The Merlin engine screams, metal grinding against metal. 30 seconds ago, he was leading a strafing run against a German airfield. Now he's a dead man flying flak. An 88mm shell fragment punched through the engine compartment and severed the oil line. Without oil, the Rolls-Royce Merlin will seize in approximately 90 seconds. After that, the propeller becomes a 400-pound anchor and the P-51 becomes a glider with the aerodynamic properties of a brick. Carr has one option: bail out. He pulls back the canopy, rolls the dying Mustang inverted, and drops into the freezing Czechoslovakian sky. At 8,000 feet, the silk canopy deploys. Below him, enemy territory stretches to every horizon. He's 200 miles behind German lines. No radio. No weapon except a .45 pistol with 7 rounds. No food. No water. November in Central Europe. Temperatures dropping below freezing at night. The mathematics of survival are brutal. American pilots shot down over occupied territory have a 23% chance of evading capture and returning to Allied lines. The other 77% spend the rest of the war in Stalag Luft 3 or end up in unmarked graves. Bruce Carr is about to become the exception to every statistic ever written about downed pilots, because in 4 days he won't just escape. He'll steal one of the most advanced fighter aircraft in the German arsenal and fly it home. Bruce Ward Carr was born January 28, 1924, in Union Springs, New York. There was nothing remarkable about his childhood except one thing. At 15 years old, in 1939, Bruce Carr learned to fly. The year matters. In September 1939, Germany invaded Poland. World War II began. A 15-year-old farm kid in upstate New York couldn't know that within 5 years he'd be dogfighting Messerschmitts over Berlin. But some part of him must have sensed that flying was about to become the most important skill a young man could possess. Not in a military program. Not in a formal school. A local crop duster named Earl let the kid take the controls of his biplane. One summer afternoon, Carr was hooked. By the time he turned 16, he had more stick time than most Army Air Corps cadets. September 3rd, 1942, Carr enlists in the United States Army Air Forces. He's 18 years old. At the Aviation Cadet Training Program, his instructor turns out to be the same man who taught him to fly 3 years earlier. Earl had joined up too. He takes one look at Carr's application, sees the 240 flight hours already logged, and recommends him for the accelerated program. By August 1943, Carr is a flight officer. By February 1944, he's in England, assigned to the 380th Fighter Squadron, 363rd Fighter Group, 9th Air Force. His first assignment, fly the P-51 Mustang. The P-51 is the finest propeller-driven fighter aircraft ever built. The numbers tell the story. Range, 1,650 miles with drop tanks, enough to escort bombers from England to Berlin and back. Top speed, 437 miles per hour at 25,000 feet. Service ceiling, 41,900 feet. Armament, 6.50 caliber M2 Browning machine guns with 1,880 rounds total. Enough firepower to shred a German bomber in a 2-second burst. Before the P-51D arrived in numbers, American daylight bombing raids suffered catastrophic losses. The 8th Air Force lost 60 bombers in a single mission over Schweinfurt in October 1943. Without fighter escort, the B-17s and B-24s were sitting ducks for Luftwaffe interceptors. The Mustang changed everything. For the first time, American fighters could accompany bombers all the way to the target and back. German pilots called them the long-nosed bastards. The Luftwaffe began hemorrhaging experienced pilots faster than training schools could replace them. Carr falls in love with the aircraft instantly. The cockpit fits him like a glove. The controls are responsive. The visibility excellent. The power intoxicating. He names his plane Angel's Playmate. He has no idea that in 8 months he'll be sitting in a very different cockpit, one with German labels and a swastika on the tail. On March 8, 1944, Flight Officer Carr scores his first combat engagement. He spots a Messerschmitt Bf 109 over Germany and gives chase. The German pilot tries to escape by diving for the deck, flying just above the treetops. Carr follows. The chase covers 40 miles at speeds exceeding 400 miles per hour, both aircraft barely clearing the German forests. Carr fires. His rounds miss. He fires again. One bullet clips the 109's left wing. The German pilot panics. He pulls up, ejects, but he's too low. The parachute doesn't fully deploy. The pilot hits the ground at 60 miles per hour. The 109 crashes into a hillside. Carr returns to base expecting congratulations. Instead, his commanding officer calls him into the office. "Carr, that was the most over-aggressive flying I've ever witnessed. You nearly killed yourself chasing that German into the trees. You're being transferred. The kill doesn't count." Technically, Carr didn't shoot the plane down. The pilot killed himself trying to escape. It's the first indication that Bruce Carr doesn't think like other pilots. Where others see recklessness, he sees opportunity. Where others see limits, he sees suggestions. May 1944, Carr transfers to the 353rd Fighter Squadron, 354th Fighter Group, the Pioneer Mustang Group, the first Army Air Forces unit in Europe to fly P-51s in combat. These are the best Mustang pilots in the war. Carr fits right in. June 17, 1944, 11 days after D-Day, Carr scores his first official kill, sharing credit for an FW-190 destroyed over Normandy. 2 months later, he makes second lieutenant. September 12, 1944, Carr's flight strafes a German airfield, destroying several Junkers Ju-88 bombers on the ground. On a return flight, they spot 30 FW-190s 2,000 feet below them. Carr doesn't hesitate. He dives. In the next 3 minutes, he shoots down 3 German fighters. When his wingman takes damage, Carr escorts him all the way back to friendly territory, forgoing any additional kills to protect his fellow pilot. The Silver Star, second highest combat decoration for valor. October 29, 1944. Carr downs 2 Bf 109s over Germany. Total confirmed kills, 7.5. He's officially an ace. For days later, his luck runs out. November 2nd, 1944. Carr hits the frozen Czechoslovakian ground hard. The parachute landing isn't gentle. His ankle twists on impact. Not broken, but badly sprained. He gathers a silk canopy and buries it under leaves. The Germans will search for him. They always search. He has maybe 20 minutes before patrols arrive. Carr knows the airfield he was strafing is approximately 5 miles north. He knows the Germans will expect him to move south or west toward Allied lines. He knows his survival depends on doing something unexpected. He heads north toward the enemy. The logic is counterintuitive, but sound. The Germans will search outward from his landing site, assuming he's running away. They won't expect him to move closer to their base. And if he's going to survive, he needs supplies. Food, water, maybe a weapon. The airfield has all 3. Day 1. Carr moves through the forest, staying off roads, traveling at night. His flight suit provides minimal warmth. His ankle throbs with every step. He hasn't eaten in 18 hours. Day 2. He finds a stream and drinks. The water is cold enough to numb his throat. He spotted German patrol 200 yards away and lies motionless in a ditch for 2 hours while they pass. Day 3. The hunger becomes impossible to ignore. Carr is burning 4,000 calories a day, just staying warm. He's consumed 0. His body begins cannibalizing muscle tissue for energy. He makes a decision. Tomorrow he'll surrender. The Luftwaffe treats captured pilots better than the Wehrmacht or the SS. Aviators have a code. They respect fellow flyers, even enemy ones. Carr knows pilots who spent time in Stalag Luft 3. They describe it as boring, but survivable. 3 meals a day, Red Cross packages, letters from home. It beats starving to death in a Czechoslovakian forest. Day 4, late afternoon. Carr reaches the edge of the German airfield. He's positioned in a tree line overlooking the eastern perimeter. Through the branches, he can see hangars, fuel trucks, aircraft. Bf-109s mostly. He plans to wait until morning, then walk to the main gate with his hands up, but as darkness falls, Carr notices something. The revetment is 80 yards from his position. A Focke-Wulf FW-190 sits inside, partially concealed by camouflage netting. Nobody believes him. For 3 full seconds, the men on the ground just stare. Mud drips from the wings. Steam rises from the engine cowling. The black crosses of the Luftwaffe are still visible beneath streaks of dirt and grass. The swastika on the tail is intact. Everything about the scene screams enemy aircraft, except the man standing on the wing. He's thin, gaunt. His face is hollowed by 4 days without food. His ankle is swollen inside a torn flight boot. His American flight suit is ripped at the knee and smeared with oil and blood, but the accent is unmistakable. "I'm Captain Bruce Carr," he shouts again, his voice hoarse. 354th Fighter Group. Put the guns down before somebody does something stupid. A sergeant steps forward, rifle still trained on Carr's chest. "Captain Carr is missing," he says. "Reported shot down 4 days ago." Carr laughs. It comes out sharp and cracked. "Yeah, I know. I was there." Someone recognizes him. A crew chief, then another pilot. The guns lower, slowly, reluctantly, as the impossible reality sinks in. An American ace has just landed a stolen Focke-Wulf FW-190 in the middle of an Allied airfield. The base commander arrives at a run. He circles the aircraft like it might explode. "How in the hell did you get that thing here?" Carr hops down for the wing and nearly collapses when his injured ankle hits the ground. 2 men catch him. He looks back at the fighter, the enemy machine that carried him home, and says the simplest sentence of his life: "I flew it." Within minutes, intelligence officers swarm the aircraft. This isn't just a stunt. It's a gold mine. The FW-190A. 8 is one of the Luftwaffe's most important frontline fighters. And this one is intact, fully fueled, undamaged except for a few small arms hits. The engine is still warm. American engineers crawl over it with notebooks and cameras. They photograph the cockpit, the gun installations, the armor plate, the engine cowling. The landing gear system Carr couldn't figure out. They tow it into a hangar and paint over the German markings before sunset. Carr is taken to the infirmary. Doctors shake their heads in disbelief. He's dehydrated, malnourished. His ankle is badly sprained. He should have been captured, or dead, or both. Instead, he's asking for coffee. 2 days later, Carr is summoned to headquarters. He expects a reprimand. Unauthorized flight, theft of enemy property, reckless endangerment of Allied forces. The Army Air Forces are not known for celebrating rule-breaking. Instead, a colonel hands him a piece of paper, the Distinguished Flying Cross. The citation is short and understated, as military citations always are. It mentions extraordinary achievement and exceptional airmanship. It does not mention that Carr stole an enemy fighter from under the noses of German mechanics, flew across occupied Europe at treetop height, survived friendly fire from every direction, and landed it without landing gear, while his own anti-aircraft crews were preparing to shoot him down. But everyone on the base knows. Word spreads fast through the 9th Air Force. Pilots come by just to see him, to hear the story from his mouth, to touch the German fighter he brought home. Someone paints a small Focke-Wulf silhouette beneath the cockpit of Angel's Playmate, marking the most unusual kill of the war. Carr returns to combat duty after his ankle heals. He flies more missions. He survived the war. When it ends in May 1945, he has flown over 100 combat sorties, scored 7.5 confirmed aerial victories, and accomplished something no other Allied pilot ever did. He stole the enemy's weapon and turned it into his escape. Years later, historians would argue about whether it should have been possible, whether the story had grown in the telling, whether a man really could climb into a completely foreign aircraft, read nothing on the panel, and fly it across a continent under fire. But the Focke-Wulf was real. The intelligence reports were real. The Distinguished Flying Cross was real, and Bruce Carr was very real. War is chaos. It rewards preparation, discipline, and teamwork. But sometimes, once in a generation, it rewards something else entirely: audacity. When Bruce Carr bailed out over Czechoslovakia, the odds said he was finished. When he walked into that forest, hungry and alone, the war expected him to surrender. Instead, he did the one thing no one expected. He took the war's most dangerous machine and he flew it home. He's been missing for 4 days. He's supposed to be dead or captured, and he has just belly landed a German fighter on their airfield. The MPs keep their rifles trained on him until a staff car arrives. Colonel George Bickel, commanding officer of the 354th Fighter Group, steps out and takes in the scene the wrecked FW-190, the mud-covered pilot, the bewildered military police. Bickel looks at Carr and says, "Where in the hell have you been, and what have you been doing now?" The story spreads to the Army Air Forces like wildfire. The pilot who stole a German plane, the only American in a European theater, take off in a P-51 and return in an FW-190. But Carr's war isn't over. 5 months later, April 2nd, 1945, near Schweinfurt, Germany, First Lieutenant Bruce Carr is leading a flight of 4 P-51 Mustangs on a reconnaissance mission. They're at 15,000 feet when Carr spots movement above them. German fighters, more than he can count. A massive formation stack from 18,000 to 25,000 feet. Carr makes a quick estimate: 60 aircraft, maybe more. Bf-109s and FW-190s mixed together. It's the largest concentration of German fighters he's ever seen. He has 4 P-51s. The German formation is enormous. Bf-109 G-10s and FW-190 D-9s, the latest variants of both aircraft. Fresh pilots, relatively speaking. The Luftwaffe has been bleeding experience since early 1944, but 60 aircraft is still 60 aircraft. Standard tactics dictate immediate evasion. 4 against 60 is suicide. The Germans have the altitude advantage, the numerical advantage, and the positional advantage. Every manual ever written says the same thing: disengage and report. Warn the bomber escort squadrons. Get out alive. Bruce Carr has never been particularly interested in what the manuals say. He keys his radio. Engaging. His wingmen don't hesitate. They've flown with Carr before. They know what he's capable of. They know that when Carr says engaging, he means it. The 4 Mustangs climb straight into the German formation. What happens next becomes one of the most remarkable air battles of World War II. The Germans don't expect an attack. They're flying in a loose defensive formation, conserving fuel, likely heading to intercept a bomber stream. For American fighters, climbing directly into their midst makes no tactical sense. Carr uses a confusion. He slips into the back of the formation, positions himself behind a Bf-109 and fires. The German pilot never sees him. The 109 explodes. Carr shifts to another target, an FW-190. 3 seconds of .50 caliber fire. The Focke-Wulf rolls inverted and plummets toward the earth. The German formation begins to scatter. They don't know how many Americans are attacking. They don't know where the fire is coming from. Carr moves through them like a wolf through sheep. Pick a target, fire, move. 3rd kill, 4th kill, 5th kill. In the space of 3 minutes, First Lieutenant Bruce Carr shoots down 5 German aircraft. His wingmen account for 10 more. For American pilots, 15 German aircraft destroyed. 0 American losses. When the ammunition runs out, Carr leads his flight home. The surviving Germans, 45 of them, scatter across the countryside. April 9, 1945. Bruce Carr is promoted to captain. He is awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, second only to the Medal of Honor, for his actions on April 2nd. The citation reads, completely disregarding his personal safety and the enemy's overwhelming numerical superiority and tactical advantage of altitude, he led his element in a direct attack on a hostile force, personally destroying 5 enemy aircraft and damaging another. Carr becomes the last ace in a day in the European theater of World War II. No American pilot will match the feat before Germany surrenders. By the end of the war, he has flown 172 combat missions and accumulated 14 or 15 confirmed aerial victories. The records differ, plus numerous ground kills. He is 21 years old. The war ends. Bruce Carr stays in uniform. He joins the Acrojets, America's first jet aerobatic demonstration team, flying F-80 Shooting Stars. Then comes Korea, where he flies 57 combat missions in F-86 Sabres with a 336 Fighter Interceptor Squadron. He commands a 336 from 1955 to 1956. Colonel's eagles on his shoulders, the kid from Union Springs, New York, running a fighter squadron. Then Vietnam. Colonel Carr, now 44 years old, flies 286 combat missions in F-100 Super Sabres. Close air support, bombing runs, strafing missions. The same work he did 24 years earlier in a different war, in a different aircraft. 3 wars, 3 generations of fighters, 505 combat missions in total. He retires in 1973. April 25, 1998. St. Cloud, Florida. Bruce Ward Carr dies of prostate cancer. He is 74 years old. They bury him in Arlington National Cemetery. Section 64, Grave 6922. Among the heroes of every American war since the Revolution, within sight of the tomb of the unknown soldier, across the river from the Lincoln Memorial, the headstone lists his rank. Colonel, United States Air Force. It lists his decorations: Distinguished Service Cross, Silver Star, Legion of Merit, Distinguished Flying Cross with clusters, Air Medal with clusters, Purple Heart. It lists his wars: World War II, Korea, Vietnam. It doesn't mention the Focke-Wulf. It doesn't mention the 4 days in the Czechoslovakian forest. It doesn't mention the belly landing with no landing gear, the MPs pointing rifles at his face, or the commanding officer asking, "Where the hell have you been?" Some stories don't fit on headstones. There are 2 ways to tell the story of Bruce Carr. The first is a legend. The downed pilot who stole a German fighter from an active airfield, figured out the controls by trial and error, and flew 200 miles back to Allied territory, while every gun in Europe tried to kill him. The second is a documented record. The ace with 15 kills, the Silver Star recipient, the Distinguished Service Cross winner, the man who led 4 aircraft against 60 and won. Both are true. Both are remarkable. But here's what matters. In November 1944, an American pilot found himself alone, unarmed, and stranded 200 miles behind enemy lines. The rational choice was surrender. The safe choice was giving up. Bruce Carr chose differently. He looked at a German fighter aircraft covered in unfamiliar instruments and saw not an obstacle, but an opportunity. He climbed into a cockpit he'd never seen, started an engine he'd never operated, and flew an aircraft he'd never touched before. Not because he was reckless, but because he refused to accept that his options were limited to the ones that seemed possible. For months later, faced with 60 enemy fighters and 4 friendly aircraft, he made the same calculation. The rational choice was retreat. The safe choice was survival. He chose attack, and 15 German pilots never made a home. In 1997, a year before his death, Colonel Carr flew one more time. Kermit Week's Fantasy of Flight Museum in Florida invited him for an air show. Carr, now 73, arrived in a P-51 Mustang, his own aircraft, maintained in flying condition. He came in over the crowd at 300 knots, 50 feet off the deck, the same approach he had used 50 years earlier when he flew a stolen Focke-Wulf into a French airfield while his own side tried to shoot him down. Some things, apparently, never change. The crowd watched a 73-year-old man throw a World War II fighter through maneuvers that would challenge pilots half his age. Loops, rolls, high G turns that pressed him into the seat of forces that would gray out younger men. When he landed, someone asked him what he was thinking up there. He shrugged. Same thing I was always thinking. What's the airplane capable of? What am I capable of? Let's find out. That's the Bruce Carr story. Not the stolen fighter. Not the 15 kills. Not the 3 wars and 500 combat missions. The story is simpler than that. It's the story of a pilot who looked at impossible odds and asked, "What else can I do?"